Are you a nonprofit leader struggling to make sense of social media? Do you have a team that you cannot give direction to because you don't know what the heck you're talking about? In this episode, we're going to help you unlock the trends for 2005 social media here on Land the Talk. Welcome to Land the Talk. I am your host, Robin Nathaniel, here with another solo episode. We checked out the data and the statistics from our episodes, and our highest performing show was one of my solo episodes about social media. So we're back at it again. So in this episode, I'm actually going to take some data that I gathered from Hootsuite in their social media trends for nonprofit organizations, just unpack it, give you my commentary, and hopefully provide you with tons and tons of value. So this is the 2025 social media report for nonprofits. I got this data from Hootsuite, one of my favorite sources for social media information, trends, analytics, but also strategies. And I'm going to just go through it step by step with you. Now, I will note, this is not the complete report. I definitely took some of the highlights that I feel are most relevant to the people that I'm communicating with on a day-to-day basis surrounding social media. So I wanted to make sure that you knew that this is not just like me reading off their report. This is me actually taking the high-level information that I think that'll be most valuable for you and your nonprofit organization so you guys could use it to raise tons of money and increase your global reach for your mission. So let's jump right into the first slide here. So these are some of the social trends for 2025 and how they're shaping social media in the nonprofit sector. One of the big things is content experimentation. This is something that I've been on the hilltop, like literally screaming with a bullhorn for nonprofit organizations to do. We find in many of our interactions with social media leaders that folks are going on social media, reserving their handles on the big platforms like Facebook, Instagram, maybe TikTok, YouTube, X, Twitter, right? And what they do is they put a link to their website maybe, and then they start flooding social media with basic designs and flyers promoting events, initiatives, things of that nature. Now, I'll start by saying I don't mean any harm when I say this. If you're just doing that, you're missing the mark. And I believe that your mission deserves more than that. So I want to encourage you in 2025 to really experiment with some different content types. For YouTube, it might look a little different. Folks might share a video from one of their events and just share it from beginning to end, someone speaking on stage, or maybe a little bit of BTS from one of their events, but not really capturing those stories. And that's one of the things we want to experiment with. So Hootsuite goes on to say, social teams, and this is one of the trends that they predict for 2025, social teams ditch brand consistency to push creative boundaries. Oh, baby, that is speaking my language. 42% of marketers at nonprofits have experimented with a new tone of voice or personality on social media in the last 12 months. Another important note, brands drop in on creator comments to pick up new audiences. 41% of marketers at nonprofits have been testing proactive engagements. This is huge. So 2 takeaways there. We talked a little bit about creative assets, making sure you're exploring, the creative oasis, if you will, to make sure that you guys are coming up with things that can resonate with your audience. If you keep creating those flyers on Canva and then not getting any engagement, there's a reason for it. It's because your audience is not resonating with it. And if you want to do that, the best way to do that is really thinking about creating a video strategy around capturing stories of the people you serve, your staff members, or the organization's story as a whole. The other thing they mentioned was about getting into the comment section, how marketers, social media professionals for nonprofit organizations should get more active in the comment section to create new audience members. And one thing that I'm really trying to drive home for folks who are speakers, right? Because many of the speakers in our community are nonprofit leaders, but also mission-driven leaders, right? If you're doing something that is supposed to impact people in a positive way, this is for you, and I need you to listen up close. It's okay to focus in on the results of what you are trying to do as opposed to the thing you are trying to sell or get people to take action on. I find that in this space, we're in a place where it's like, hey, my name is John. I have a nonprofit. Will you donate? What? Where they do that at? Like, I don't know you, John. I want to get to know you. So a better strategy would be, instead of creating a flyer that says, hey, come to our event and donate. Hey, click here to donate. Hey, this is how you support. Maybe creating a piece of content that's like, hey, this is what we did for Andrew. This is how we helped Maria. This is how we helped Sarah and her family. And that will speak to the audience that it needs to speak to. And they will take action, and they won't just become volunteers. They just won't become donors. If we get this right, they'll become advocates. And that's what we're trying to build here. This is going to blow your mind. Data from the U.S. government's National Child Abuse and Neglect Data System found that over 3 million child abuse cases are reported every year. That's why we are supporting MOSAIC Georgia. MOSAIC provides support to children, youth, and adult victims of sexualized violence in all forms. They provide free, confidential support and services to victims, families, and survivors of sexual abuse and assault. Legal, medical, and counseling, they provide it all under one roof. But they can't do it without support from people like you. Visit bit.ly/donate to MOSAIC today and make a donation. Your generosity can save a child's life. So that's the first piece of the puzzle that I wanted to share. The next one is, what social media platforms are nonprofit organizations using? What social platforms are nonprofits using? When I saw this, I was like, I have to share it. My people will love it. I have to share it with you. So let's start from the top. The big platform on the block, Facebook, still running strong. Again, this is according to Hootsuite. And this is a sample from 520 respondents. And this is from a 2025, the Hootsuite 2025 trend survey. So 96% of nonprofit organizations are on Facebook. You've heard this myth that Facebook is gone, Facebook is dead, like, don't spend your time on Facebook. Now, I will admit, I am not the biggest fan of Facebook. I feel like I get on there and I get the most spammiest spam I ever get. People from all out the woodworks reaching out to me. But I've put myself in that position because of what I do, right? I'm putting myself out there. I'm quite open and public with all of my, content and information. So I get that. But for nonprofit organizations, it's definitely a stable foundation. Now, would I prioritize it in terms of the energy I put in to social media? It would be a part of the priority, right? It wouldn't be the main priority because there's so much happening on the other platforms, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but I wouldn't neglect it. I would definitely allocate a percentage of your bandwidth or your resources to Facebook, specifically Meta ads. So if you are not running Facebook ads, I think for your nonprofit organization, it's a great way to improve in terms of awareness for your cause and movement, but also a great way to get some of those conversions if you're trying to get some donations. So that's Facebook. And then the Meta twin, which I think is really cool, that Instagram is 92%. So 92% of nonprofit organizations are using Instagram, which is huge. And it shows that they're kind of working hand in hand. So if you're on Facebook, I would strongly recommend just getting on Instagram as well. Many of the organizations that I have spoken to or worked with in the past, might have Facebook, but they're not utilizing Instagram, which for me is a huge mistake because it's low-hanging fruit. You're already creating the content on Facebook. It doesn't hurt to also publish that content on Instagram. So I would strongly recommend we give Instagram some attention as well. And then this one is great. LinkedIn. Oh, baby. If you have listened to anything I've put out on social media over the last couple of months, you know that in 2025, for my business, for my clients, I am locked in on LinkedIn. Oh, baby. I think there's just so much opportunity, especially when we're thinking about founder-driven content. We have so many organizations, throughout the nonprofit sector who put up their logo, right, of whatever the organization is. It could be like a fish with a pinwheel, like that's what it is, whatever the name of the organization is. And that's it. They put up the logo. Maybe they'll share some of those images their team creates from Canva, but they don't actively nurture the platform. This is specifically with LinkedIn, but this could also be relevant to the other platforms as well. And one thing we want to do in 2025 is stop treating social media like a box that you need to check on your to-do list. You're doing a disservice to your organization. You're doing a disservice to your team. And most importantly, you're doing a disservice to the people that you serve. You're crippling your mission. You're crippling your mission. So definitely we want to concentrate on LinkedIn if we're not already there. And one more thing before we leave LinkedIn, when we talk about founder-led content, you don't want to just operate from your company page. You want to make sure that whoever the leader is of the organization or whoever the spokesperson is, you want to make sure that their content is leading people towards the mission and also towards the company page. So really the focus is getting the team to jump on, show a face. People are more interested in interacting with humans than they are with logos. I'm just saying. So after LinkedIn at 86%, we have YouTube at 66%. I'll start by saying this. YouTube is my favorite platform. Like, I love YouTube as a user, as a marketer. I just think there's so much long-term value, longer shelf life for your content, where on Instagram or Facebook, you could release a piece of content, it'll live for a couple of minutes, and then it'll disappear into the abyss of lost content, never to be seen again. Where with YouTube, if you get it right, your content could essentially live forever. It has a longer shelf life. So if you're creating content that's bringing value to your audience in a way that years down the line, people who have that same question, people who have that same concern, people who have that same problem will be able to reference your video for years to come. Think about it. How many times have you needed to solve a problem, something as simple as, I don't know, changing a valve on your furnace in your house, and the first thing you did was go to YouTube. You go to YouTube, you look it up, and a video from 7 years ago, Am I talking to someone right now? A video from 7 years ago, shot on an iPhone, mad rickety, shaky, with over 2 million views, provides the solution that you're looking for. So when we think about social media, we always want to provide solutions to people's problems, but specifically on YouTube, that is the cheat code, if you will. That's how you really create content that has a longer lifespan than other social media platforms. So I want to make sure you guys are trying out YouTube this season or this year if you're not already. But if you are on YouTube, please reach out if you need support on figuring out a strategy. If you didn't know, I did spend a portion of my career with vidIQ as one of their founding creator coaches. So my job literally was like to wake up, get on camera, and like coach creators about YouTube. So like I love this stuff, but I've learned a bunch. I don't know the most. I'm not going to sit here in front like I'm the best YouTube specialist in the world, but I am in fact a YouTube specialist. I'm just saying. Make sure you guys knew that. 60% of 60% of nonprofit organizations are on X, Twitter. I would prioritize X and Twitter as well. I think there's a lot of changes happening there. I know that people are fleeing X and Twitter for platforms like Threads and Blue Sky. I wouldn't be against testing those platforms, but I would definitely keep a stronghold on your presence on Twitter or X. If you are not on Twitter and X, I wouldn't prioritize it. And for new social media teams, people who are brand new to social media with their nonprofit organization, I always recommend this rule, and this is very important, so listen up. Focus on one platform, but reserve your handles across all platforms. So focus on one platform to start, but make sure you reserve all of your social media handles. Very important. The last thing you want is if the name of your company is, Hits Different, Hits Different Inc. or whatever, Hits Different, and then your handle on Facebook is Hits Different, and then on Instagram it's Hits Differently, and then on X it's like Hits.different. Like, you want it to be across the board. If you can reserve the same handle across the board, I would recommend that. And there are even websites out there that will help you to check to see if your handle is already used. So I would reserve the same handle across all social media platforms. So after X is 60%, we have a huge drop. So we went from 96, 92, 86, 66 to 60%, all the way down to 27% with TikTok. If you don't have TikTok on your phone right now, you won't be able to download it. We did an entire episode about TikTok recently if you want to check that out. But if you are on TikTok already and you have an account, I would recommend make sure you stay active there as well. Next up is 16%, which was very surprising to me. Threads. Threads made it in here, which is the X Twitter version or app that Facebook and Instagram over at Meta, those folks at Meta released. Then we have WhatsApp, which is another Meta product, Pinterest at 7%, and then Reddit at 4%. Struggling to find time for social media? Unsure how to make it work for your brand? Do you feel like you're getting left behind? Guess what? We help busy leaders like you take the guesswork out of social media. From full-service solutions and fractional strategy support to award-winning video production and quarterly audits, we handle the heavy lifting so you don't have to. Imagine having a social media presence that drives results without sacrificing your time or energy. We're only accepting a few clients this year, so don't wait. Visit bit.ly/Robin for hire to hop on a free call to see if we'd be a good fit for each other. Again, that's bit.ly/Robin for hire. One of my buddies told me that I really need to lean into Reddit. I tried it out at the end of last year. I do NBA content as well, and for my NBA content I tried, and it was just a lot, man. If in fact you are on Reddit and you love the platform and you love to engage there, I think there's a lot of opportunity there. I think for me, the forum that I was in, the people were just really, I don't want to say, they were prejudiced. I think so. It felt crazy, y'all. It was like, they were like blocking my stuff. I would go back and look and someone else would release the exact same stuff. And the difference between me and another user is that I'm creating public content. I have videos on YouTube. You see my face. And after a while, I just quit. I was just like, these guys are mad at me. Like, what did I do to them? But that is a whole nother episode for a whole nother day. Okay, next up, let's take a look at how often nonprofits are updating their social strategy. 39% of nonprofits are updating their strategy quarterly. 25% are doing it annually. 17% are doing it monthly. 9% are not doing it at all, and 5% are doing it weekly. So how often should you take a look at your social strategy? I think it depends on the organization, but best practice, what I try to teach people is to look at it from different vantage points at different times of the year. So what I like to do is in late Q4, maybe October, November, we start looking at what we're going to do for the following year, strategy-wise for the whole year. Then we break it up into quarters. So now I know what my year is going to look like. I know what my quarters are going to look like. Social media is very fluid. It changes, things change, businesses change, nonprofits change, the works, right? So you want to make sure you have some flexibility. So then what I would recommend, once you have the annual and quarterly plan broken down, then I would take it to monthly. I don't really suggest daily or weekly strategies. You can pivot weekly and daily as needed, but I like to at least 30 to 60 days before content starts getting published that we know exactly what we're doing, we know what the strategy is, and we know if we're going to make any changes or revisions to our quarterly or annual plan. So that's just high level how I like to look at it. And again, if you have questions about it, please reach out. I'll be glad to help. Next up, let's talk about what causes nonprofit organizations to make changes to their social strategy. 45% of nonprofits change their strategy because there's a change in organizational goals. 43% change because of results of previous social media posts or campaigns. I think that's a legitimate, very legitimate reason to change your strategy. 30% change to target social platforms, algorithms, and updates. That's something listen, we have to be mindful of algorithm changes, but if you're creating really good content and you're also telling the story of your organization, it'll work. You might have to make minor changes, but pivoting your entire strategy because of an algorithm change is not always the best plan. 25% of folks change because of new audience insights. 24% change because of cultural opportunities like memes and trends. 23% change because of team resources, including bringing in an external agency. 21% of folks change because of news, updates, or on their brand guidelines. 17% change because of major news or cultural events. 16% change because of new management. 12% change because of their target audience changing. 12% change because of competitor activity. I wouldn't really recommend that. Don't go changing because of your competitors. Another 12% change because of new social media tools. And the last little bit changes because a crisis specific to the organization. So for me, I think these are all legit. Some of the ones that really give me kind of a red flag are algorithm changes and also competitors. Again, pivoting and changing your weekly publishing schedule, things of that nature is fine. But when you shift your entire social strategy based on things that are external, you know what I'm saying? I think that's where I kind of have a red flag. Again, I'm not against doing that when the time calls for it, but generally speaking, I'm really about leaning into the content being right and then everything else working itself out. It's what I call algorithm-proof content. Algorithm-proof content. Okay, so next steps. Before we close out, first thing I want you to do, if you're starting your social media journey, or if you guys are trying to refresh what you're doing on social and you want to take a look to see how you can improve for 2025, first thing you want to do is budget for social. If you haven't already allocated funds for social media, what I would do is I would talk to leadership about looking at your marketing budget and seeing if you can make some type of an amendment to get some resources for social media. Far too often in in the nonprofit space, far too often, folks look at social media as something that doesn't cost money to run. They're like, oh, it is free, right? Yeah, it's free. Like, just get some images and put it up there. We got an event on Friday. What's the strategy? Promoting our events. Huh? No. Social media costs money. The sooner you start looking at social media as a marketing channel and investing, this is my thing. If you were asking someone, let's say 20 years ago, 30 years ago, hey, we want to run an ad in the paper this quarter to promote an event, to create awareness, for example, you wouldn't tell them to just do it. It's free. You would allocate money for it. And it's the same thing. Social media is the new marketing, right? And yes, you can get active at low cost. And if you're a small nonprofit, like a one-person operation, yes, you can do it for free. But I'm talking to the nonprofit leaders who have a budget and have a marketing budget. And you're missing the mark if you are not taking some of those funds and using them for social media. So that's the first thing, budget for social. The next thing is access your bandwidth. Take a look at your team. Maybe you need to make some changes. You don't want someone just going in there and checking the box. If you don't have the bandwidth to do it, maybe make sure that you empower and delegate to someone who will do it, but make sure it's someone who cares. And honestly, look at their workflow and look at their workload, I should say, and figure out what percentage of their responsibilities will be aligned with social media. You have to do this. It can't be like, hey, he does website, he does graphic design, he does social. No, it needs to be like, 50% of his time is communication on email with, partners. 20% of his time is on graphics. 20% of his time is on social. You need to break it down and make sure that the different responsibilities are spread out in a way that will benefit the organization as a whole. And the last thing is, if you are looking at all of this and you're like, what the heck, Robin? I don't have time. I don't have patience. I don't have team for this. Get help and get started. If you get help, there are people like myself. And if you want to connect with me on a phone call, my information is on the screen. If you're listening at home, it's bit.ly/Robin for Hire. That's bit.ly/ROBINFORHIRE, Robin for Hire. Listen, if you're taking your head, banging it against the wall because you don't understand this stuff, it's okay. It's not your job to understand this stuff. It's my job. It's people like me who live, breathe, sleep, and poop this stuff. Like, this is totally my jam. So I don't want you out there, oh my God, what am I going to do? I can't figure it out. And you have people in this industry who are here to support you. Now, if you have a team that needs guidance and you don't know how to support them, that's also something I can help with. But there are tons of people out there that might be a good fit for you. So even if you don't decide to work with me, I want you to work with someone. That's all we have this week. Make sure you tune in to the next episode of Land the Talk. Please do us a big favor. If you got any value here, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And please subscribe and like our YouTube channel at Land the Talk. Talk to you soon.